What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. With the new Baptiste cosmetics that just went live to the PTR, also came with it some balance changes that we're going to go through now. The reign of terror of Junkrat may be reined in a bit. First up, though, Baptiste, his biotic launcher now can be stopped from automatically reloading by switching the automatic reload option to off. This option defaults to on. And there were some significant changes to the visuals and sounds of Immortality Field. The reload change is nice because I always felt it difficult for me to realize when my heal nades were going to force a reload, and I think much like managing your ammo economy really well with a character like Zarya comes into play a lot with Baptiste, where you're really never going to run out of primary fire. There's way too much capacity, but to keep your efficiency high, you'll want to put down some healing and then put down some aggro offensive shots and get the bigger bang for your buck for one reload, especially when sometimes the windows to shoot the thing in front of you are now, and if your gun forces a reload when you don't even need to be healing, can be quite problematic. Now, this Immortality Field change, I'm not so sure how I feel about. As you can see, it looks way different than it used to. Now there's like God rays emitting from it, and granted, the players that go in it on your team will have this pretty yellow glow about them. I think their goal here is to clear up the visual communication of this ability, whereas when everything was sort of the blue color, hard to tell what is a barrier, not a barrier, you expect it to block damage and it doesn't. Whereas now with the new change, I think it'll be easy to know when you're under the effect, because you'll feel yourself glowing yellow, and your enemies will be able to see your glowing yellow as well. But it might be a little bit harder to jump into it, knowing where that sharp cutoff radius is. Whereas before, when there was lines outlining the whole cylinder, I think you could more easily tell where safe and dead was. Probably overall a good change though, because part of the visual clutter also, I felt, made it hard to stop the drone that was producing the field when you were trying to shoot it as an enemy of the Baptiste player. Next up, nerfs to Junkrat. Oh, come on, Blizzard. You couldn't let my boy have his time in the sun. I had so much free SR to farm off that outrageous buff. Now his frag launcher, impact damage will be slightly tuned back from 60 to 50, and the cost of his rip tire will go up by 10%. The devs say this: since the most recent increase of frag launcher's damage output, Junkrat has been building his ultimate too quickly. We're increasing the cost of his ult to balance this change with his increased damage dealing capabilities. Okay, a couple comments on this. I wish they didn't nerf the ult charge rate, because that was one of the key things that was going to help goats stay dead and buried, potentially anyway. But if you watch my Junkrat is Insane video, the key points of why 140 damage was so outrageous was how that interacted with damage amps to meet some insane thresholds that got you kills that you didn't expect to get, and probably was way too good, and I think that's why they toned this back. Now, a direct hit from Junkrat will do 130, so 5 more than a fully charged Hanzo body shot, 10 more than a typical Pharah rocket, but more importantly, how does this interact with the different damage amps that exist in the game? Well, a Mercy damage pocket will now only get your nades to do 169, whereas before it did 182, leaving you with 31 health. Okay, that feels way more fair. An interesting breakpoint is combined with Supercharger or Nano Boost, where now you'll do 195. Now, if you remember, it used to do 210 with the old 140 nades. So now there'll be a sliver of health on any squishy that gets hit with one of your nades with the 50% damage amp value. And what about the 100% damage amp value? Going through damage amp matrix from Baptiste, now you'll do 260, which I'll note, still pretty good. It was doing 280 before. 260 is still enough to one-shot a Brig, Doomfist, and two-shot most tanks. Frankly, if you're landing any grenades through a damage amp matrix, you're probably killing the thing you're hitting. So that combo is pretty hard to pull off anyway, so I don't feel too bad about this being lethal. Now, an interesting breakpoint that still exists, though, is when you combine the combo of a direct hit nade with his mine. His mine still does 120, but with his direct nades doing 130, he still can one-shot characters like Doomfist and Brigitte when he combines them hitting together in a 1-2 punch, pre-firing the nade and tossing the mine to land as the nade hits. Okay, next change. Zarya's particle cannon's alternate fire explosion radius has changed to just the flat 2 meters regardless of energy level. If you remember, the last change they tried is take it from where it was on live 2 to 3 meters based on energy, down to 1 to 2. This is an interesting change because what it says to me is that they were afraid of Zarya being too weak at the early stages of the fight before she got charged up, so she keeps the base splash no matter what on her alt fire, but will just weaken a bit as a range damage dealer when she finally does get charged up. I'm not sure what I think of this being too impactful overall anyway, because Zarya really is only insane in Goat's comp, and as long as she's doing 190 damage per second with her beam when she gets to full charge, I think the range damage is kind of irrelevant because the comp never feels like it has to fight from there. And although in theory you'll be doing less splash damage to multiple targets with this reined in a bit, still think the best Zaryas are going to be hitting their shots regardless, at least on stationary targets and tanks. The big difference I think is ranged DPS characters being afar from her may feel like they have a bit more of an advantage at the medium ranges where her right click is effective at all. Now there was a bunch of bug fixes, but a lot of these turn out to be major changes in terms of hero power, so whenever Blizzard calls it a bug fix, but it makes a character's abilities stronger or weaker, it's important to look at because it does effectively buff or nerf that character. Baptiste fixed a bug that allowed his immortality field to be placed under the payload. It also now gets destroyed when the payload runs it over, just like Supercharger and other things like that. Doomfist, you may have seen that there was a goofy bug where he dropped like a rock when using Rocket Punch mid-air. They fixed that. Now you fly across the map horizontally like you're used to. And last but not least, they say they fixed Lucio's speed, but I still think we're going to be needing some testing on the different rollouts and stuff to see if they effectively kept him where he was at. We didn't have time to cover this, but you may have seen it on Reddit, and Blizzard has already started to address it, that despite Lucio's wall ride speed going up on the PTR patch, with a combination of this unexpected bug that they're apparently addressing, and that your speed aura goes down, your speed on walls was at a net negative from where it was at on live. And I believe the main reason people thought this was that the momentum you got jumping off the walls seemed to be reduced, and I did test this on the PTR for myself, and I felt that this is now reverted, so I believe it's fixed. I'd imagine you should be able to get the same amount of momentum overall, because realistically, although you might get hyped over this speed change on the wall, it always was the speed momentum increase you got from wall bouncing that made Lucio super fast. I'm pretty sure that's back, and at the very least, Blizzard is attempting to address that, so I think that's something about his character they're looking to keep, and we should expect to be maintained when the PTR patch finally goes live. Well guys, that's gonna be everything for the patch notes. What do you think of the changes? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I, for one, was willing to accept our Junkrat overlords. If you can't beat them, join them. Fine, Blizzard, you took my toy away. No free SR for me, unfortunately. He's still better now, but doesn't hit those redonkulous breakpoints that I think was going to make him an absolutely insane character. They reined that in a bit. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, dank memes, and Overwatch League predictions. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. See you guys next time.